Well, good morning. If you don't know who I am, because I haven't been up here for a while, and it is great to be able to be back here. I've been looking forward to today for quite some time, and this week has been a lot of things in my life, and I've enjoyed getting ready to be up here with you and looking forward to it. One of the things about Christmas, and you guys love Christmas, but I love all the decorations. And I love just the way that we put a lot of, sparkly things up here. I mean, that's what you think of when you think of Christmas, right? And maybe some of you right now, you're thinking about donuts because that's what we served you as you came in the door today. But I can tell you that the best thing about Christmas, is those lights and everything. And maybe you've had opportunity to go to different light displays. Maybe your house is a light display. Maybe that's one of the things that you enjoy the most is decorating the house. I always joke around that my wife, when she decorates, it looks like Christmas threw up everywhere. And so it's great, though. I love it. And it makes it warm and it makes you anticipate the season and everything, right? But if we were really to be honest about how we view Christmas, we maybe see it a lot like that. And that's the reason for this series. The reason for this series this year, the Way in a Manger, is because amidst all of the glitz and glamour and lights and fun and festivities and all of that, we go back to a time when the King was born in a manger. And you may be thinking of how can you view this differently. Maybe you're going through some things that maybe are different for you. I want you to think of it this way. I don't know if any of you have ever been lost before. Anybody here would say, yes, I've been lost. And it may be traveling, it may be in the car, it may be on a walk, it may be somewhere. It's tough to be lost. And thank goodness for phones that give us the GPS now. I mean, what would we do? I find myself typing in when I'm going to go somewhere that I go to every day. Why do I do that? It's become a habit. Why do we have to use this thing to make sure that we're getting where we're going? Well, I don't think that I'm going to be lost in that process, but I don't know, maybe it brings me comfort a little bit. I don't know. I at least know the pathway I'm going to go. At least the fastest one. Maybe that's the way it is, right? Because we live in such a fast-paced world now that it's like, what's the fastest route? How can I get there as soon as possible? And so a lot of us, that's what kind of we think about. We think of the way that we can get through something like this and we can get to where we can actually, not feel like we're lost anymore. And I don't know about you, but I've gone on trips before where I've gotten lost. And my wife is always reminding of me of those times when we get in and I don't want to necessarily use a map or I don't want to use a GPS. I'm thinking, I can do this. I'm a man. I can do this. I can get from, the point I want to go to someplace I've never been, but I'll know how to get there because I just know, all right? Well, I found that's just not true. I have found myself lost many times. But you know what's worse than being lost? It's being lost in the dark. You ever been lost in the dark? I don't know if you've ever been to like Berlin, Ohio, or Millersburg, or up in that area. It's where a lot of Amish people, Amish descent, where they live. And for some reason, my wife loves to go there. And I think it's a lot of the, just the far. It is a really calming place to live. I mean, honest, I can see how it would really be great and everything. And I like to go there too, okay, because they've got amazing food up there. All right? And so you go there, but on the way there, if you travel there at nighttime, you are thankful for the GPS. Because when you get up into that area above Columbus and you're going through that area up there, you drive. And if you know what I'm talking about, if you've ever been there, you drive. And then all of a sudden, a great big huge basket is there on the highway. If you don't know what that is, you need to just research that a little bit there because it's crazy. It's crazy and everything, but you just go and you see a light here and a light here, and it's just like a back porch light bulb, and it's like, wow, this is dark. All you have is the light of your headlights and maybe an oncoming car. Okay? I can tell you being lost in the dark is no fun, though. And maybe you're like me, and I'm going to be honest with you, straightforward. I'm not going to back away from it. I have a disease. Or maybe it's not a disease as much as it is just a phobia. I have scotophobia. Anybody know what that is? It's fear of the dark. I don't like the dark because I have broken toes because of the dark. And maybe you're like me, it feels that way. The darkness is just heavy. I don't know why it feels that way, but it does. If you were to turn all the lights out and you could block out every piece of light, it's just tough, right? Wait, darkness itself. Darkness actually can leave you vulnerable. It can leave you scared. And it actually can leave you feeling alone. It's just a sense of not knowing what's there, what's around me, what's the circumstances. But once the light comes on, don't you feel better? You can see what's there in front of you. You don't have any problems. You can see what's close to you. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Or maybe you do when you actually see where you are, But the idea is that it gives you awareness. It allows you to see things for what they really are. You don't have to be afraid anymore. You don't have to have the unknowns of what the darkness puts in front of us. And unfortunately, I think sometimes we see darkness as something that may be comforting. It's hard to sleep, right? Because if you have lights on, of course, I can see reasons for being dark. But even at that, I'm still one of those guys that likes a night light. I just do. I can't tell you why, except for the fact that when our little boy, and he's no longer a little boy, he's quite old, and so he was our first, and when he was born, he had a bedroom down a hallway, and down this hallway, it was kind of darker, so we made sure we had lights and everything for him, but one night the lights were out, and something scared him, maybe the darkness, and he started screaming and started running down the hallway. And of course, as a strong father figure, what did I do? I stepped out into the hallway and I embraced him and said, "Son, don't be afraid of the dark," right? No, I didn't do that. When I'm asleep and I'm awakened, abruptly, like he awakened me, I turn into like a 4-year-old little girl. Okay, and I start running toward him because he needed me, but I was like, and he was screaming and I was screaming, and it was a screaming contest between the two of us, but I was scared of the dark. I had to admit it. Finally got my composure, and I pulled myself back a little bit, and Charlene came to the rescue and held him and made him feel better. Now, I got to tell you, that was early. Now, I don't have that trouble now. I don't have any trouble about that now. Just let y'all know, all right? But I can tell you, though, darkness is scary because it leaves you vulnerable. It leaves you, scared and alone. You don't know. You turn all the lights out and you don't see anybody else. You don't know if anyone's there or not. I want to take you back to a passage of Scripture. You might say, this is interesting. It's interesting to talk about this at Christmas. But you're going to see how it just is a thread of amazing things of why Jesus, God himself, came and was born in a manger. Why did he do this? Well, we go to Genesis. It's the first book of the Bible. And if you want to follow along, you can on YouVersion. Just go to the church app and hit Bible messages, and you'll be able to look it up right there real easy. And give you all the notes, everything we're doing today, and even some reading that you can do through the week. But this verse is maybe very familiar to a lot of us. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. And what's the word? Darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. I think that a lot of us, when we think of creation or whatever, and you may have differing views or whatever of really what happens, but we know that God was the creator because he's the one who said he was the creator. He gave us that information so that there was no ambiguity or anything that was confusing about it. God's the creator. And that may be something you're trying to wrestle with right now. That's fine. That's good. Wrestling with that very thought is important because coming to conclusion, especially a right conclusion about this, could shape your life. And a lot of us have maybe come to that conclusion, but have we really considered what it was before God created? See, God didn't need light. All right, God didn't need light himself. It wasn't like he had to do these next steps in these verses because he was afraid of darkness or that darkness was overcoming him. It had nothing to do with that. Matter of fact, when the darkness was this way, it was just the existence of what was known at that time. But God did something different. The next verse takes you into this. It says, and God said, and you want to read it with me? Let there be light. God turned on a light switch. God created something out of nothing. He created light, and all of a sudden it changed everything. No longer was darkness the singular atmospheric look to things. This was it. God saw that the light was good. He saw that it was good. And what did he do with that light? Read it with me. He separated the light from the... That's right. He separated it. It now no longer would be the same. It couldn't be the same because light chased the darkness away. I want you to think of it this way. God used 4 little words, basically. Let there be light, to create light and push back the darkness. I have something here with me today, and I got straw probably all over it, but that's okay. And I don't know if you know what this is. This is a curtain. And if you can tell, it's meant to be a blackout curtain. I don't know if you've ever had these. If you go to a hotel, you usually see blackout curtains, right? Blackout curtains are there to keep the light out. And then this handy little gadget, which is fantastic. I love this because I'm scared of the dark, and I love that. Isn't that amazing? You know? And yes, I am at times guilty of putting it in my back pocket on and this light coming from my backside. All right? So this light, oh dear. There we go. All right. The key is knowing how to use technology. All right. And so this right here, if you were to put this up in front of light, it keeps the light from coming in. It keeps it. Remember? I mean, look, on this side, you see the light? No. Right? It's gone. The light's there. But when the light shows up, it's obvious. If I come like this, ooh, okay, that's a little scary. But you get the idea, right? The concept of a blackout. We're going to come back to this idea. What do you do with these? Why do you buy these? Why do you put them up? Because you want it to be dark. You want it to be dark. You don't want there to be light. As we look at some scripture and we continue to look at it and see how this all pans out today, one of the things that is critical for us is to consider the fact that sometimes we tend to want things to be dark. It's almost as if we choose for them to be dark. God said in 4 little words, let there be light, and that pushed back the darkness. So if we go now to another passage, it's following right along into why Jesus came. In Isaiah chapter 9, Isaiah was a prophet who was a preacher who proclaimed the coming of Jesus. It was going to be hundreds of years later, but he was proclaiming that Jesus would be coming. And this is what Isaiah said about the people and their circumstances and why they needed the light. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. People who are there, our normal daily life, we are born into a darkness that, a lot of us would just label from what it says in the Bible, basically sin. Sin is darkness. It's everything that sin does in our life. It leads to darkness. It leads to separation from any kind of light. And a lot of times when we sin, or we like to sin, or we want sin to be a part of our lives, what do? We run to the darkness so it hides it, right? We don't want it to be seen. We want it to be in the dark so nobody knows. Well, here the idea is Isaiah just made it clear. The people were walking in darkness and they saw a great light. What was this light that they're talking about? We're going to see it develop. He's talking about something that's coming in the future, something that's going to happen. So when Jesus was born, there was darkness. It was a dark life. Everything depended on following the law. Many people didn't understand. They thought they had to do a list of the 10 Commandments and beyond to be able to actually have any form of light in their life. And quite honestly, that never works, because every effort we make to create light, it does not happen. We can't create light ourselves. Not this kind of light, not this kind of spiritual light. This is something that's got to be done for us. And so when you see this, he says, on those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. He's talking about a coming day when this was going to happen. You know how I know it? Because later in verse 6 of chapter 9, it says this, for to us a child, and I went ahead and put Jesus in the parenthesis because that's who he was speaking of. He was speaking of Jesus. He would come as a child. I want you to think of it this way. When Jesus came, he came as a human being. He was God fully, but God in the flesh. He took on flesh. And that flesh actually was just like ours. The dirt that we were created for, you go back to Genesis and see that, Jesus took on that dirt of a body. And as he did, that body could have, just like ours, it could die. That body could die because flesh in this world was cursed because of sin. And so if that was the case, think about this. When he came in, he took on a body that could die, right? There was a part of him that would live on and on because he was God. But there was a part of him that could die, the flesh. That part that he took on when he came to this earth, when he became a child, a baby, just like we all were at one time. I bet you all were cute babies. Were you a cute baby? I don't know. I was. Okay? So anyway, the whole idea though is this, that for to us a child, Jesus is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This was no ordinary baby that was coming in a manger. He was the way in a manger, a way out of darkness. He became the light. Now, if this is true, you see all of this, all right? Just think of it from this standpoint, a statement that I want you to hear clearly. And I want you to say it with me, all right? It's this: Jesus can light the way for anyone who feels lost in the darkness. That's why he came. He came so that he could allow us to finally see light, to get us out, a pathway out of darkness, not having to stay in darkness or not having to be there. It's an alternative to living in the dark and being in the dark. He gave us an unbelievable way out of darkness, this way in the manger. And as he grew up and became the man, he kept saying this and he kept talking about this. And people saw his life, including the people that he called his disciples or his followers. And there was one in particular that was closest to him. His name was John. And this is what John had to say about Jesus. Now, listen and see if this doesn't sound familiar to something we started with. It says this, in the beginning. All right? Now, think about that. That goes back, and it's still the same words we heard in Genesis 1, right? It's kind of amazing that he even brought this up again, but it says, in the beginning was the Word. I put Jesus in there too, just so you know. That's not in the Bible, all right? Because when you see the word there, word, it is speaking of the spoken word. When somebody speaks, you actually hear their voice. You know it's them talking. When you pick up a phone, you know probably somebody you're close to, a friend or a family member or somebody that you know, your kids, your grandkids. I know which one this is because you recognize the voice, right? So the voice, the actual statement, Jesus was the statement. This is who he is. It was his place. It was his position. It was who he was, the very Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word, Jesus, was with God, and the Word, Jesus, was God. He was God, and he was with God in the beginning. So when we go back to Genesis 1, we find out, in the beginning, Jesus was there too. Why? Because he was God. And so being God from the beginning, all of that, he represented a light that comes out, and it shows through the darkness. Through him, all things were made. So through Jesus, everything was made. Everything we have, everything that exists, Jesus was part of that creation because he was God. And without him, nothing was made that has been made. So he just kind of says this statement over and over again, a redundant statement. So there's no question whatsoever what he's trying to get across. John wants us to know when he wrote this, and he hung out with Jesus. He knew him. He heard him teach. He saw this. So when he makes these statements, he's making it clear who he was. I love this. The verses go on just a little bit further. And we go this. He says, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. Isn't that amazing? Now think about this. Jesus himself was the light. Who he was, what he had to offer, his coming and becoming flesh was what made him the light. He was the light into the darkness that every one of us are born into, and without any hope of ever turning on the light ourselves, Jesus comes in and he takes care of the need in our life. All that vulnerability and insecurity and all the sin and the failure and the issues that we deal with, all these things that just come pounding on us. Darkness can overwhelm our lives. And Jesus is like, I love you. I'm going to show you the way and show you the light, the way out of darkness. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. If there's light, I don't care what you do. If you walk outside today, and I know Ohio can be a little dreary, okay? I understand that. When we get into these months, it gets, and this is not my favorite time of year when it comes to that roll the clock back thing, all right, except that extra hour sleep, all right? They're only about the only benefit of it, because really, I don't know about you, but by 5 o'clock, it's like, what's wrong with me, Because it's dark. It's like I'm starting to shut down. It's like it's not good. You walk outside and it's like, I got to have a light to find my way. I got to figure it out. We have to turn on the headlights of the car. All of that is part of this because we're surrounded by darkness. Now, if we were to really put it in the idea that it's not about the physical darkness we're talking about, we're actually talking about the darkness of a world that's lost without Jesus. Lost and in the dark. No way of knowing how to get out of the darkness of trying to navigate relationships and people and lies and sin and awful things that can distract our lives and pull us down into a pit that we can hardly get out of, that we can't even see any light. It's so dark all around us. We need Jesus to be the one to pull us out of that. That's the kind of light and dark we're talking about. We're not talking about physical light. He created the physical light, yes, but in that he was saying, and John was making it clear, that he's the light of life. He's the one who's going to show us out of this awful, sinful way of living and what life can be without him. You can find a pathway. There is a way. Matter of fact, think of it this way. Darkness itself does not shut out light, but light replaces darkness. Okay? Light replaces darkness. It gets rid of it. As soon as you turn the light on, where'd the dark go? You don't store it away. You don't put it in a box, right? You can't do that. The light disappears. Why? Because it's not there anymore. Jesus, when he came and he was that way in the manger, When he did that, he became a light to the world, and he chased the darkness away. And I can tell you this, as long as Jesus is on this manger throne, he's going to chase the darkness away. And guess how long he's going to stay on that throne? Forever. Thank you. All right. I wonder if anybody was going to follow me on that one. Or not. Darkness does not shut out light. For those of you online, she said forever. Okay? Forever. It's so important that we don't forget this. You know, I mean, it's such a critical thing. Darkness does not shut out light. So you don't just like turn on dark. You know? Oh, it's so light in here. Let's turn on the dark. You don't do that. Okay? Think about it this way. In the light, life finally makes sense. And you walk steady and confident, right? You walk steady, you walk confident in the light, but without it, it's not so confident, right? That's when you scream bad words because you kicked the furniture because it was dark, right? Finding your way. In your life, when you're trying to make decisions and you're trying to navigate through a better life for yourself, maybe for your family or your children, you're trying to show them the right way and you're trying to figure out, how can I do this? How do I give them that input? In the light, life finally makes sense. See? And that light is Jesus. That's the only way. It's not just a physical light. And some of us think we can turn on partial lights in our life. And maybe we might be able to substitute it for something that we think is light, life, like. I mean, we may think that we can come up with our own light that we can do, but doing enough good, doing enough of those things that we think are light in our life, that's not sufficient. That's not enough. It has to do with deciding, I got to trust the only one, the one that's sufficient to light my life. He's the only one I can trust with this. He's the only one who can chase that darkness away. Matter of fact, think of it again just this way. Jesus can light the way for anyone who feels lost in the darkness. Jesus can be that one, that pathway to it. And let me show you this. Later in that chapter of John, when he was writing this, he spoke this about Jesus. He said, "Yet to all who did receive him, those who receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God." In other words, he's going to be the light to anyone. He'll pull anyone out of the darkness. It doesn't matter how dark you think you are in, or the darkness is around you, or a part of your life, or the people in your life, or any of that. He can be that way out of the darkness. And it takes total trust. It really does. It takes total trust. You may be experiencing this. You may have been a believer in Jesus for most of your life, and yet darkness still comes in, and it is hard on you. Or there are times when we just decide darkness is something that's comforting. You know? Changing the words of a particular song. Oh, you know, hello darkness, my old friend. And I got to tell you that a lot of times we miss the benefit of Jesus turning on the light for his children. And for those of you who are just like wondering, what's this mean for me? It just tells you. To anyone who received him and believed in his name, you become a child of God. Do you have a friend? Do you have somebody? Or do you find yourself questioning what it is to be a child of God? That's the answer right there. Receive him. Believe in him. Receive him into your life, because he wants to take you from darkness and put you in light. Give you confidence and give you a sense of that. But then it goes on. The verse says, when Jesus spoke again, remember the idea of words and how words are so important? And God used what? 4 little words to create light. Jesus spoke again to the people, and he said, what's he say? Read it with me. I am the light of the world. This is amazing, because at this time when this was going on, this was a time when they had a festival. And the menorah, would have actually been a part of that. And so he would have been in the temple teaching or around the outside area of the temple, and they would have had this huge candlestick, up there, and it would have been a light. It would have been there to be seen. That would have been a big deal. And this festival was all about this festival of lights and coming together and enjoying each other's company and acknowledging God and what he was doing. And they said, this is something we acknowledge God for light and what he's done and celebrating all of that. And then Jesus steps on the scene, and what's he say? Hey, guys, look over here. I'm the light of the world. He was proclaiming that what he was bringing to them was going to change everything. It wasn't just some practical, candlestick that lit up an area, that as soon as you blew out the flames, the light went away and darkness re-entered. No. Jesus was the light, and it would never be dark again because of him. Anyone who received him, anyone who believed him could follow that light in his life. And whoever follows me will never walk in darkness. I don't know about you, but to me, that's exciting. Because I don't have to be afraid of the dark anymore. Physical dark or the darkness of the world that's around me, distracting me and tempting me and wanting to get me off the path and serving myself instead of others and really not even thinking about the light. But what will we have if we don't have the darkness? We'll have the light of life. Wow. I mean, that's amazing to me. And then, you go back. I want to remind you of the words again, just so that you see it. In Genesis 1, remember what he said. And God said, remember, Jesus spoke and said, I am the light of the world. God said, let there be light. And there was light. That's powerful. And he separated the light from the darkness at that point. So there's always been this opportunity to separate the darkness of sin and awful things. Because of Jesus, now we have this separation. This is amazing. Now I can tell you, it gets very, very practical here. All right? A lot of us in our life, we have access to the light. Anyone has access to this. I think we've made that, established that, right? This light is available to anyone who will follow it or allow it to be in your life. And this goes for anyone who is searching and saying, I've never trusted or believed in Jesus. Or it may be for people who believed in Jesus all the way back to maybe when you were even a child and you've always gone to church and been part of all of that. But I want to tell you something. The access of the light is something for all of us. And we need to live in that light every day. Every day. But unfortunately, I think we let things get into our life. I'm going to turn that off. And we start thinking, I think life would be better, though, for me if I were in charge, if I were in control. And so we start to put up the blackout curtains. We choose darkness in certain parts of our life. It may be our past. It may be things like depression or anxiety. Matter of fact, think about the things that can be, like depression or fear, anxiety, loneliness, anger, disappointment. And listen, let me just say this. Those are all very real things that can be a part of our life. Things that are hard on us and things that are difficult for us. And we have a choice whether to let Jesus' light be what helps us and get the way out of it, or to put up the blackout curtain. How many of us think of things in our life and our go-to is darkness? It's comforting to me. Or darkness. I like to wallow in my problems, and I like to, because when I turn on the light, I see things for what they are, and I might have to change, or I might have to do something differently, or I might have to deal with something that I don't want to deal with. And we remain in the darkness. Why? Why do we do this? I got to tell you, I wish I had this one wrapped up, but there are times in my life where it's like easy to lean back to the darkness. It's so easy to lean back to that, because then I don't have to be real, or I don't have to be authentic. I can fake it. I can make it through. Whenever I fake whether or not I'm following Jesus, well, that's a lot of just putting up a curtain. Because it's not letting the light in. It's not the light that's coming through. Why do I do that? I got to tell you, this time of year especially can be one of those times of year where we get to a point to where it's almost seasonal type depression and anxiety because of family or past or all kinds of things. But I got to tell you something. Jesus has a way out of that darkness. Don't choose darkness over light, especially if you have Jesus within your life. Why cover the light up? Why block it out? Why do that when He's so available and wants to do so much? Let me just tell you something. Do you find yourself lost in the dark? Are you? Are you lost in the dark? Do you feel like you have no way out? If you've trusted Jesus in your life, then you do. It's at your access so quickly. You're already a child of God. Why put up a curtain? Why put up a blackout in your life? Why not let the light shine? But you don't know the circumstances I'm going through. I don't. But you know who does? The light. Jesus knows that. He's the light of the world. That means there's not one dark place that He can't chase the darkness away and the light be what's most prominent. And not only would it be light there, but it's going to chase the things away. I'm not going to tell you your depression's going to go away automatically. I'm not going to tell you your anxiety will immediately, bang, it's gone. Honestly, those are miraculous things that could happen in your life, yes, that God could do. But you're going to need more than that. Matter of fact, remember what it said, His Word, that He was the Word, and that Word was God, and that Word was with God, and all of that. So I can tell you this, that taking time to just read 1 or 2 verses a day, those are light. He was the Word, and He was the light. So anytime you take the Word into your life and you listen to it, and you hear it, you read it, you make it part of your life, that's going to be good. I got to tell you something else. You should do that with other people. You can't do this by yourself. You can't do it alone. Matter of fact, the more you're with someone else who's showing that light of Jesus, it will chase the darkness away. They will help you chase that darkness away. Husbands and wives, if you've got darkness in your marriage right now, lean into Jesus. Let Him be the light in your life. And if it's light in just one of your lives, then I can tell you it's better than both of you being in the dark. Take the steps necessary. Are your children asking questions and they're trying to figure it out? Don't lead your children down a path of darkness. Don't put them in a place where they're able to put up curtains. Help them take those curtains down. Help them see the light around them. And you know who they're going to see it from? They're going to see it in your life. See, lost in the darkness, I want to change the statement I said before from Jesus can light the way to Jesus will light the way. For anyone who feels lost in the darkness, He will do everything necessary in your life. He's already really done it. Casey showed us here today what Jesus has done to be the light in your life. He went to the cross and died for all the darkness in your life. He was buried because that body he was wearing while here, that body died. He was all the way dead. And then God raised Him from the dead back to life as the real light. And that's what's offered to any of us. If He had stayed dead, He would still be in darkness. Right? But He didn't, because He was the light. Imagine what that was like on that Easter morning when the stone rolled away. You've heard the story. You know what I'm talking about, right? The stone rolls away. Can you imagine the light that burst out of there? I like to dream, of grandeur and all of that. That light was just like, it blew those Roman soldiers away. They were just like, what? I can tell you this. that if all we do is receive Him and believe in Him in our lives, and really for those of us who have done that, even to really believe that He's capable of this, that's trust. That's giving it all to Him. That's what you've got to do. And let me just tell you something. That's for any one of us. It's available to all of us, no matter what we've done. That little baby was not just a baby. He was the King who came here to be the light of the world, the way out of darkness. That way in the manger. And for all of us collectively, I know it's great to come to church on Christmas, but I got to tell you, there are a lot of people that are stuck in darkness. There are a lot of people out there that you know, friends and family, that are putting up blackout curtains in their life because they prefer darkness right now because they've not heard or seen the light. Wouldn't it be great for you and for me, for all of us together as a church, as representatives of that light in our life, that we go out and we invite people. We get past our fear. Don't let the darkness of fear get in the way of you interacting with someone and inviting them to come and to be a part of this and to hear a message that may change their life. See, Jesus' light shows up strongest when we bring it to someone who feels like they're in the dark. You know somebody in the dark? Are you in the dark? Do you need to seriously yield your life or give your life over, receive and believe, or truly believe and trust in your life that Jesus is the light and can get you out? Don't choose the blackout drapes. Don't choose darkness. Choose light, because it will give you confidence. It will give you what you need. Jesus in your life, His Word, speaking to Him, talking to Him. You'll never get a busy signal. I know that doesn't exist anymore. It will never go to voicemail. He will always hear you. And you know something? You might say, I don't know the first thing what to do. You don't know how dark it is right now. Okay. Then will you do me a favor? We have people who will be at Next Step Central today. Would you please just reach out to them or go on the app and leave a prayer request or something like that so that we can interact with you and build you up and encourage you and point you to the way in the manger who was the light of the world. Please let us do that for you. I want to take a moment and I want to pray, and then we're going to sing a song that really reflects on the idea of what this right here, this rustic, full of hay, straw, it's not hay, it's straw. But all of this right here, this illustrates that among the glitz and the glamour and the lights that we go back to this, the humble beginnings of our God who came here and took on flesh to be the light of the world, the way in a manger. Would you pray with me, please? Heavenly Father,